Sometimes your life doesn't change with a disaster, or revelation, or some cosmic prophecy. Sometimes it changes with a single message, a short vibration, a notification that wakes you in the middle of the night and pulls you into a world you never imagined. For Adrian Voss, that moment came at 3:17 a.m. He woke to the sharp buzzing on his wristband, the kind of military notification that didn't care whether you were asleep, working, or simply trying to hold your life together. Adrian wasn't military. He wasn't a soldier or a pilot or anyone expected to wake to urgent orders. He was just a propulsion engineer stationed on a quiet orbital facility, spending his days tuning cargo thrusters and fixing aging engine coils. But when he looked at the alert flashing on his display, his pulse stumbled. Immediate summons. Report to Helion Command Center. Classification: gray level. Gray level. He had never even seen that term used before. It was above civilian access, above research clearance, one step below red protocol, the classification used when humanity was facing extinction. Half asleep and fully confused, Adrian hurried through the corridor toward the nearest transit pod. As he moved, he noticed something he had never seen on the station before: fear. Officers rushed past him without speaking, screens flickered with emergency reports, and the lights in the hall were locked to crisis mode. And then he saw the broadcast panel. 3 human colonies, 3 entire worlds, gone, destroyed in less than an hour by an unidentified alien fleet that had crossed the Trion Belt with impossible speed. No warnings, no communication, no survivors confirmed. The numbers didn't make sense. The devastation didn't make sense. Nothing about the situation felt remotely possible, which only made it more terrifying. By the time Adrian reached the command center, he was practically dragged inside by 2 security officers. They guided him into a sealed meeting chamber where 3 people waited: a military commander, a tired-looking scientist, and a woman from intelligence whose expression revealed absolutely nothing. The intelligence officer spoke first. "Adrian Voss." "Yes. What's going on?" She slid a tablet across the table toward him. "You've been flagged as compatible." The word hit him harder than he expected. Compatible? Compatible with what? He was an engineer, not a telepath, not a genetic experiment, not a test subject. He forced himself to breathe. Compatible with what? This time the scientist stepped forward, voice steady, but eyes troubled. "With something we found drifting in deep space." She hesitated. "A vessel, but not a traditional vessel." Another pause. "It's alive." Adrian blinked, thinking he hadn't heard correctly. "Alive? A living ship? What does that—" The scientist nodded quickly. "It reacts to neural patterns. It rejects all contact except yours." Adrian felt the floor tilt beneath him. 3 colonies destroyed, an alien fleet advancing, a living spacecraft found drifting in the void, and for some unfathomable reason, it responded only to him. Every instinct inside him screamed that all of this was wrong, that he wasn't meant to be here. But beneath the fear, something colder lurked, the unmistakable sense that none of this was random. As the scientist watched him, as the commander crossed his arms, as the intelligence officer studied him like a puzzle finally solved, one truth settled deep inside Adrian's mind. His life was no longer his own. Something out there, something alive, had chosen him. And whatever waited in the deep, whatever was coming next, had already begun. The trip to the Helion research sector wasn't long, but for Adrian, it felt endless. The transport shuttle moved in complete silence, filled with people who pretended not to look at him. Every face carried the same expression: urgency mixed with dread, as if they all knew something he didn't. When the shuttle docked, Adrian stepped into a corridor unlike anything he'd seen before. Thick blast doors, security drones, scientists whispering to each other with hurried, frightened gestures. Whatever they had found out there, it wasn't small, and it wasn't safe. Two guards guided him through restricted sectors, past decontamination fields and energy barriers that hummed like living static. No one explained anything. No one dared. Finally, they reached a circular chamber sealed behind several transparent layers of reinforced shielding. The air felt charged, heavy, like walking into a storm that hadn't yet decided where to strike. The scientist from earlier stood inside, tapping commands into a floating console. She looked up when Adrian entered. "You're here. Good." She exhaled, clearly anxious. "This part won't make sense at first, but try to stay calm." Adrian forced a shaky smile. "No promises." With a swipe across her console, the room dimmed. The floor shifted, and something began to rise from the central platform. Adrian's breath caught. At first, he thought it was metal, smooth, dark, reflective, but then it moved with a slow, organic pulse, like a creature waking from a dream. Lines of light flowed beneath its surface, branching like glowing veins. Curved structures formed patterns that felt less like engineering and more like anatomy. It was neither ship nor animal. It was both. It was alive. Adrian stared, unable to form a single word. "This is Echo 9, the scientist said quietly, but he barely heard her, because at that exact moment, something impossible happened. A pulse of energy spread from the creature, subtle, like a whisper carried on a breath, and brushed against Adrian's mind. Not physically, not visually, mentally. It wasn't violent. It wasn't invasive. It was curious. Adrian stepped back instinctively. "Did you feel that?" One of the guards frowned. "Feel what?" Adrian looked between them, stunned. "You didn't sense anything at all?" The scientist's eyes widened. "She's reacting to you already." The creature shifted slightly, as if trying to lean toward him despite the magnetic restraints. The lights along its body brightened, rising and falling like a heartbeat syncing with his presence. Adrian swallowed hard. "It's aware of me." "More than that," the scientist whispered. "It recognizes you." There was no fear in the creature's response, no aggression, only a gentle, probing intelligence that reached for him again. Another pulse, this one stronger. Adrian gasped softly as a warm sensation spread across his skull. Not pain, but a thought, or rather, the shadow of a thought. A question without words. He stepped closer, compelled by something he didn't understand. The scientist watched silently, barely breathing. Adrian touched the creature. The world shifted. A wave of emotion, not memory, not language. Emotion surged into him. Curiosity, relief, confusion, recognition. He staggered. The scientist grabbed his arm. "Are you all right?" I felt her thinking." A stunned silence fell over the room. The creature's glow softened, like a sigh of comfort, as though relieved to finally be seen, truly seen, after drifting alone in the dark for who knows how many years. The scientist whispered. None of the others lasted longer than a second. Some fainted. One had a neuroseizure. "But you," her voice trembled, "she's bonding with you." Adrian stared at the living vessel, feeling its presence echo inside his mind like a second heartbeat. He didn't ask to be chosen. He didn't want to be special. He only wanted to understand why. And yet, somewhere deep inside, he already sensed the truth. This was not an accident. Echo 9 had been waiting for someone, and for reasons the universe had not yet revealed, it had chosen him. In the days that followed, Adrian found himself returning to Echo 9 again and again. At first, the visits were scheduled, monitored, strictly controlled, but soon they became something else entirely. Not routine, not duty, but a pull, gentle yet unmistakable, as if the creature was calling to him, And the unsettling part was that he could feel that call. Echo 9 was no longer just a presence in the room. She was a presence in his mind, a quiet pulse beneath his thoughts, like someone standing just behind him, whispering without sound. The scientists were fascinated. The military was concerned. Adrian was both. On the third day, he was instructed to begin a deeper neural synchronization test. When he stepped into the chamber, Echo 9 reacted before he even crossed the threshold. The veins of light across her surface brightened in a soft wave, a greeting, a recognition, an invitation. The scientist monitoring the test, the same woman who had first shown him Echo 9, looked at him with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "She's anticipating your thoughts now," she said quietly. Adrian blinked. "I'm not thinking anything in particular. That might be exactly what she's responding to." He approached the creature slowly. As he drew closer, that familiar mental sensation swept through him, warm, curious, gentle, like fingertips brushing the edges of consciousness. He pressed a hand against Echo 9's living surface. The biometal warmed instantly beneath his touch. And then it happened. A surge, not painful, not violent, but overwhelming. A cascade of emotions, impressions, instinctive shapes of thought that weren't his own. Echo 9's mind brushing against his, not trying to dominate, not trying to invade, simply reaching, like two people extending hands across an impossible distance. His breath caught. I can feel her. She's trying to understand me." The scientist nodded vigorously. "That's the connection. Let it form. Don't fight it." Adrian closed his eyes. Instantly, he saw flashes, not images, not memories, but experiences. The sensation of vastness, the cold drift of space, the ache of loneliness, and beneath all of it, the relief of finding someone, anyone, who could hear her at last. Adrian's voice cracked slightly. "She's been alone for a long time." The scientist swallowed. "Centuries, according to our estimates." Another pulse washed through him, stronger this time, like Echo 9 was attempting to synchronize her rhythm with his heartbeat, her energy with his neural flow. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was alive. Suddenly, Adrian stumbled back, overwhelmed. The connection retracted at once, like a creature startled, retreating to avoid hurting him. The scientist ran forward. "Are you okay?" Adrian nodded slowly, still disoriented. "I'm fine. She pulled away when I couldn't handle it." The scientist's eyes widened. "She adjusted to your limits in real time." That was the moment Adrian realized what this truly was. Not a machine bonding protocol, not a pilot interface, not a scientific experiment. This was a relationship, a living being trying to match itself to another. Echo 9's glow dimmed and then warmed again, as if apologizing. Adrian placed both hands on her surface this time. "Steady." "It's all right," he murmured. "Let's try again." A soft mental warmth replied, like a gentle maud inside his mind. And just like that, the connection deepened, smoother, more synchronized, less overwhelming. Two consciousnesses aligning, two beings learning each other's rhythm. Outside the chamber, technicians watched in stunned silence as their monitors displayed something no human system had ever captured. Dual neural resonance, a human brainwave pattern blending with alien bioelectric signatures. They weren't just connecting, they were synchronizing. By the time Adrian stepped back, breathing deeply, the truth had settled firmly inside him. He wasn't just chosen, he wasn't just compatible, he was becoming bonded. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the chamber, Echo 9 silently echoed the same realization. He was no longer alone. Neither was she.
Ever since the first successful synchronization, Echo 9 changed. Subtly at first, then undeniably. Her glow steadied when Adrian entered the chamber. Her pulses synced with his steps. Her presence in his mind no longer felt like a visitor, but a quiet companion. But while the bond between them deepened, something else darkened over the station, an atmosphere of dread that thickened every day. Adrian noticed it in the scientists' hurried whispers, in the soldiers stationed outside the laboratory, gripping their weapons too tightly, in the way the corridors seemed to widen with fear. Something was coming, and Echo 9 felt it long before any human sensor did. The confirmation arrived during a late-night briefing. Adrian was escorted into the command hall, where holographic maps flickered with red indicators. Several officers stood around the table, voices low and tense. The moment he walked in, the room shifted its attention to him, because the news concerned him more than anyone else. The intelligence officer spoke first. "We have a problem." She brought up a projection of the region surrounding the station. Red blips appeared near the edges. Too many. A hostile fleet has changed course. They're coming toward Helion. Adrian felt his pulse quicken. Why here? The commander answered with a hard stare. Because they know Echo 9 is on this station, and they want her. A chill slid down Adrian's spine. The scientist expanded the hologram, revealing the ship's strange energy signatures, erratic, unnatural, like systems stitched together by something that didn't fully understand life or technology. They're not standard enemy vessels. She zoomed in on one. These are hunter ships, designed specifically to track and capture living technology. Adrian swallowed. Living technology, like Echo 9. Exactly. The intelligence officer stepped forward. We believe the alien fleet that destroyed the colonies wasn't acting alone. They were being guided. Adrian already knew where this was going. He had seen it in Echo 9's memories, felt it in her fear, guided by the same entity that destroyed her world, he said quietly. The room fell silent. The scientist's face paled. So it's true. The creature's memories weren't just trauma. They were warning us. Adrian nodded slowly. It's not just a fleet coming for us. It's something bigger, something that uses fleets the way a hand uses tools. The commander slammed a fist onto the table. Whatever this entity is, whatever it wants, Echo 9 is the key. Maybe to stop it, maybe to survive it. And you, Voss, are the only person she responds to. Adrian felt the weight settle on his shoulders. Not metaphorically, physically, like gravity itself had tripled. He returned to the chamber later that night, drawn toward Echo 9 by an urgency he couldn't ignore. She was glowing faintly, the light pulsing in rapid waves. Agitated, afraid. When he touched her surface, the mental connection hit instantly. A sharp flash, a distant tremor in space. Shapes moving toward them. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Hunting. Adrian gasped and gripped the creature harder. You feel them too. And Echo 9 answered with a surge of emotion that needed no translation. Run. Fear. Warning. Desperation. Adrian shook his head. We can't. If we run, they'll follow, and Earth will be next. The creature's pulse slowed, painfully, sadly, as if it understood the truth and hated it. Outside the chamber, alarms suddenly blared across the station. Lights turned red. Metal groaned under atmospheric pressure shifts. A distant explosion reverberated through the walls. A voice on the intercom shouted, "All units, unknown vessels approaching fast, battle stations." Echo 9 pulsed violently. Adrian felt it like a second heart pounding inside his skull. The threat wasn't approaching anymore. It was here. And Adrian finally understood. This wasn't just a pursuit. It was the opening move of a much larger war, one humanity didn't even know it was already part of.
The attack didn't begin right away. At first, it was only tension, the kind of tension that wraps itself around the walls of a station like a tightening fist. But inside the chamber with Echo 9, something else was happening. Something deeper, something older. Adrian felt it the moment he touched her surface again. A tremor ran through his mind, like someone pulling open a curtain he didn't know was there. The lights in the chamber dimmed, though no one touched the controls. The air felt thick, heavy, charged with something that didn't belong to this world. Then, the first memory hit him. Not an image, not a vision, a feeling so vast and ancient it made his knees buckle. The scientist monitoring the session shouted, "Adrian, what's happening? Your neural readings are spiking!" He barely heard her, because suddenly he wasn't Adrian anymore. He was flying through colors that didn't exist on any human spectrum, through nebulae that felt like oceans, through star fields so dense they resembled living forests of light. And he wasn't alone. He felt others besides him, other beings like Echo 9, nave creatures soaring together, communicating without sound, without words, sharing thoughts like ripples in still water. A civilization built not from steel, but from life, where ships were born, not constructed, where technology grew like coral, where entire cities pulsed with bioluminescent intelligence. Adrian gasped, tears forming without reason. It was beautiful, so impossibly beautiful. But beauty never lasts. The memories shifted. The sky darkened, not from clouds or storms, but from presence. A consciousness spreading across the stars like oil over water. Silent, cold, indifferent. The other living vessels panicked, their minds flaring with warning. But there was nowhere to run, nowhere safe, nothing to fight. Because the thing that came for them wasn't a fleet, it was a concept, a devouring idea. It didn't attack, it didn't invade, it simply erased. Adrian screamed as the memory of that erasure washed over him, the sensation of entire continents vanishing, of voices falling silent, of minds blinking out one after another. He felt Echo 9's terror, her helplessness, her desperate escape into the void, and her unbearable loneliness afterward. When the memory finally released him, Adrian collapsed to the floor, gasping. Sweat dripped down his face. His hands trembled uncontrollably. The scientist was at his side in seconds. "Adrian, what did she show you?" He struggled to speak, voice hoarse. "Her world, her people, everything she lost." "Lost? How?" He met her eyes with a hollow expression. Not by war, not by invasion, by something older, something that consumes without reason, something moving across the universe like a correction. The scientist froze. A correction? It destroys what it considers flawed. The intelligence officer, who had silently entered the chamber, spoke with a trembling voice. "And now, it's coming here!" Adrian didn't need to answer. He and Echo 9 already felt its echo. And in that moment, one terrifying truth crystallized. The fleet approaching the station wasn't the real enemy. They were only the symptoms, the shadow of something vast and ancient and inevitable, something that had already begun turning its attention towards Earth. Echo 9 pulsed weakly under Adrian's hand, not warning him, not showing him a vision, just sharing one simple emotion: fear. This was no longer about survival. It was about understanding what hunted them before it reached humanity. And Adrian knew, whether he wanted it or not, he was the only one who could.
Adrian didn't sleep that night. How could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw fragments of Echo 9's memories flashing behind his eyelids. Planets dissolving into nothing, civilizations erased without struggle, a cosmic silence swallowing everything that dared to exist. He wasn't reliving her trauma, he was carrying it. And the frightening part? He could feel that Echo 9 knew he was carrying it. She stayed inside his mind, a quiet pulse of presence. Not speaking, not showing, just staying, as if she didn't want to leave him alone with the pain she had shared. But the universe didn't pause for him to recover. By morning, he was summoned to a private briefing with the station's highest-ranking personnel. Only 4 people were present: the commander, the lead scientist, the intelligence officer, and Adrian. And tension hung in the room like static before a storm. The commander began without ceremony. "Voss, we need to know exactly what Echo 9 showed you." Adrian swallowed hard. His voice felt too small for the weight of the truth. "She showed me who destroyed her world." The intelligence officer leaned forward. "The alien fleet?" Adrian shook his head slowly. "No, the fleet was just a puppet. The real threat wasn't a species. It wasn't an army." He looked each of them in the eye, letting the words fall heavy and slow. It was a consciousness. A silence deeper than fear settled over the table. The scientist broke it first. A disembodied mind? More like a principle, a force. Something that moves through galaxies like a natural law no one asked for. The commander frowned. "Explain it in terms we can use tactically." Adrian struggled to translate something indescribable into human language. "Imagine something that judges life the way an antivirus scans a computer. If it sees a civilization as unstable, unpredictable, or flawed, it deletes." The intelligence officer stiffened up. "Deletes? Entire civilizations?" Adrian nodded, instantly, effortlessly, without anger, without intention. "It's just what it does," the scientist whispered. "A cosmic purifier," Adrian corrected. "A cosmic eraser. He doesn't cleanse, it eliminates." The commander stood up, pacing. "And you're saying the fleet heading here is influenced by this entity?" "Yes. They're barely alive anymore, more like infected vessels acting on borrowed will." He hesitated before adding, "And they're not the real threat. They're just the scouts, the eyes of something far larger." The intelligence officer's voice cracked. "Is it aware of us?" Adrian felt Echo 9 pulse inside his mind, a sharp warning. He took a breath. "Not fully. Not yet. Right now, humanity is a faint signal on its horizon. But activating Echo 9?" the scientist asked. Echo 9 pulsated again in Adrian's head, an uneasy truth pressing against his consciousness. He finished quietly. "Activating her will make us visible." The room froze. The commander exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "So our only weapon against the approaching fleet is the very thing that may expose us to the real enemy?" Adrian nodded. "Yes. If we fight, we risk being noticed. If we don't fight, we die anyway." The intelligence officer whispered, "So this is checkmate?" Adrian shook his head. "No, it's worse." They stared at him. "This isn't a battle. It's the opening move of something ancient, something vast, something that watched galaxies die and didn't even blink." The commander's voice hardened. "Then we have no choice." He turned to Adrian. "You and Echo 9 may be the only thing capable of slowing what's coming. We need you ready." Adrian felt the connection with Echo 9 deepen, an emotion radiating from her that he didn't expect. Not fear, not sorrow, resolute. The scientist stepped forward. "Voss, you must understand, Echo 9 didn't choose you by accident." Adrian nodded slowly. "I know. Whatever's coming, she wants me to face it with her." "But why you?" the intelligence officer asked. Adrian closed his eyes, letting the answer form not from his thoughts, but from Echo 9's. When he spoke, it was with 2 voices, his own and a distant echo beneath it. "Because I'm alive, because I'm untainted, because I can still choose." He opened his eyes, and because humanity has not yet been judged. The room fell silent, and in the quiet, a truth settled over them like a shadow. The war headed their way was not about territory or survival or revenge. It was about existence itself, and humanity had just been drafted into a conflict older than the stars.
The briefing left Adrian shaken long after he stepped out of the command hall. The station around him felt different now, heavier, quieter, as if it too understood the enormity of what was coming. Every corridor hummed with restrained panic. Every passing soldier avoided his gaze. Every scientist whispered behind closed doors, because everyone knew the same truth. Echo 9 would not activate without him, and activating her could reveal humanity to a cosmic predator. The weight of that responsibility settled on Adrian's shoulders like a gravitational force. He walked the long path back to the containment chamber alone, but even from a distance, he felt Echo 9's presence waiting for him. Warm, steady, pulsing softly at the edges of his mind. She knew. She always knew. When the door slid open, her bioluminescent veins brightened at once, the glow traveling across her surface like a ripple of hope mixed with fear. Adrian stepped inside, closing the door behind him. You feel it, don't you? He didn't speak the words. He didn't have to. The connection made language unnecessary. A pulse answered him. It was gentle, uneasy, apologetic, as if she regretted placing this burden on him. Adrian approached and rested both hands against her surface. A deep vibration ran through his palms, not mechanical, but alive. The lead scientist entered quietly a moment later, carrying a portable terminal clutched tightly to her chest. Her expression was solemn. Adrian, we need to talk about activation. He exhaled slowly. I assumed as much. She hesitated before continuing. If we trigger the full neural link, you won't just interface with Echo 9. You'll merge with her. Adrian frowned. Merge how? She hesitated before continuing. Your mind and hers will overlap. Thoughts, instincts, fears, memories. You won't just pilot her, you'll become part of her. A shiver traveled down Adrian's spine. It wasn't the idea of losing control that scared him. It was the idea of losing himself. What happens to me afterward? The scientist swallowed. We don't know. Echo 9 emitted a soft, melancholy pulse that washed through Adrian's mind like an echo of a sigh. She didn't want this any more than he did, but she understood the stakes better than any human possibly could. The intelligence officer entered next, her steps sharp against the floor. Voss, I won't sugarcoat this. If you refuse, we lose the station. We lose the colonies behind it. And eventually, Earth. Adrian clenched his jaw. I'm aware. Then you also know what happens if you accept. He nodded. He would no longer be just Adrian Voss. He might never fully return. The officer softened slightly, just slightly. You have the right to say no. We won't force you. But that wasn't true. Not really. Not when the alternative was extinction. He turned back to Echo 9, pressing his forehead against her warm surface. The creature responded with a surge of emotion so vivid that it made his breath catch. I don't want to take you. I want to share with you. A trembling breath left him. If we do this, what am I after? Am I still me? The response was slow, deliberate, heavy with meaning. You will be you, and you will be more. The scientist watched quietly, realizing the decision had already been made long before the meeting. The officer nodded once, accepting the inevitable. The commander's voice crackled over the comm. Enemy ships have entered the outer perimeter. We need Echo 9 activated now. Adrian closed his eyes. He thought of the colonies lost, of the screams in Echo 9's memories, of the cosmic force erasing worlds like dust, of humanity, unaware, unprepared, vulnerable. He opened his eyes, and for the first time since this all began, he felt certainty. All right, he whispered, let's do it. Echo 9 pulsed with sudden warmth, relief, gratitude, and something almost like affection. The scientist straightened, wiping a tear from her cheek. Prepare for complete neural fusion. Adrian stepped into the center of the chamber, heart pounding but steady. The weight was crushing, the choice impossible, but it was his. And with that, humanity's fate shifted into a direction no one could predict. The intelligence officer whispered under her breath,
God help us, this is really happening, because in the next moments, Adrian Voss would cease being just a man. He would become the bridge between humanity and something ancient, alive, and desperate to protect the last flicker of life in a universe turning dark.
The activation chamber felt different this time, quieter, as if the entire station were holding its breath. Technicians moved around Adrian in tense silence, adjusting neural conduits, calibrating bioelectric receptors, verifying levels they didn't fully understand. None of them dared look him in the eyes, not because they didn't respect him, but because they feared what he was about to become. Echo 9 waited at the center of the room, her biometallic surface glowing with a soft and uneasy pulse. She looked smaller somehow, or maybe it was Adrian who felt overwhelmingly large, filled with choices and consequences he wasn't ready for. The scientist approached, hands trembling slightly. Once the fusion begins, your conscious mind will link directly with hers. You'll experience what she experiences, think what she thinks, feel what she feels. Adrian nodded, though exhaustion pressed on him like a weight. I know. If at any point you want to stop, I won't. The scientist swallowed hard and stepped back. The intelligence officer entered next, her voice steady though her eyes betrayed her fear. We're out of time, Voss. The station's shields won't last. The enemy is minutes away. Adrian glanced at Echo 9. Then let's not keep them waiting. He stepped onto the platform. The bioluminescent strands extending from Echo 9 shifted, sensing his approach. They moved like roots reaching for sunlight, slow and deliberate. The creature's glow brightened, not aggressively, but with purpose. The chamber lights dimmed. Alarms went quiet. Even the hum of the station seemed to fade. It was as if the universe itself stepped aside to watch. Adrian placed both hands on Echo 9. The reaction was instantaneous. A surge of energy, warm, alive, ancient, shot through him. But instead of recoiling, he let it flow. His mind opened like a door swinging into bright, blinding light. Thoughts he didn't recognize filled him. Emotions that weren't his churned in patterns he didn't understand. He felt weightless, and at the same time anchored to something infinitely vast. He heard the scientist shouting behind him. Neural resonance spiking! No, stabilizing! Gods, it's syncing with him! But her voice felt far away, dim, irrelevant, because Echo 9 was speaking to him, not with words, with existence. He fell forward, and instead of hitting the ground, he dissolved into light. Suddenly, he was floating in a space that wasn't a place. It was a mind, a cosmos, a memory. He felt Echo 9 all around him, curious, cautious, protective. And then he realized she wasn't entering him. He was entering her. He saw her thoughts like constellations, her instincts like gravitational currents, her grief like ancient nebulae collapsing in slow, sorrowful silence. And she felt him too, his fears, his doubts, his stubbornness, his humanity. For a moment, Adrian panicked, afraid of losing himself, of dissolving entirely into this vast consciousness. Echo 9 sensed it instantly. A warm pulse wrapped around his mind like arms steadying him. Do not fear. The message was simple, comforting, honest. He steadied. The two minds intertwined, hesitant at first, then more confidently, like two hands learning how to hold each other. Systems around them lit up, monitors screamed with readings beyond any human thresholds. The scientist gasped. They're merging. Their neural patterns are aligning almost perfectly. This is unprecedented. But Adrian didn't hear her. He was too busy drowning and breathing in the same moment. He felt Echo 9's senses opening to him, the vibration of cosmic radiation, the subtle warping of space-time, the electric whisper of enemy ships approaching from beyond the asteroid belt. Then came something deeper, a second heartbeat, not inside his chest, inside his mind. He wasn't alone anymore. The final stage of the fusion hit like a star going supernova. Light exploded inside him. Colors he had no names for, sounds that existed beyond frequencies, pain and comfort entwined like fire and water. And then, silence. Adrian opened his eyes, except they weren't just his eyes anymore. He was looking through Echo 9, through her body, through her senses, through her soul. She spoke not with words, but with certainty. We are ready.
Adrian exhaled. Yes, we are. For the first time since the alien fleet had appeared, he didn't feel fear. He felt power. He felt purpose. He felt connected to something greater than he'd ever known. And as the hangar alarms blared announcing the breach of the station's outer defenses, Adrian and Echo 9 stood as one. A new being, a new force, a new hope. The fusion was complete, and the war was about to begin.
The fusion changed everything. To Adrian, the world felt sharper now. Every sound clearer, every vibration more meaningful, every shift in the air pregnant with hidden signals. But it wasn't just his senses that had transformed. It was his perspective. He could feel the station, not metaphorically, literally. Through Echo 9's awareness, he sensed the metal structure trembling under incoming shockwaves. He felt the tension in every power conduit, the hum of every shield generator, the anxiety of every human rushing through the corridors, unaware of how small their fear truly was compared to what loomed in the dark. And he felt the enemy, distant but closing in like a storm. The scientists and military officers stood behind the safety barrier, staring at Adrian with a mixture of awe and terror. He wasn't just standing anymore. He was connected, anchored to Echo 9 like two beings sharing one soul. The commander's voice cracked through the intercom. "All personnel, stand by. Enemy vessels have reached visual range." Adrian didn't need visual range. He saw them through Echo 9 before the sensors picked them up. Predator-shaped silhouettes slicing through space. Hull designs warped by corruption. Movement too synchronized to be organic, too fluid to be mechanical. The scientist gasped as her monitor lit up. "They're not flying, they're hunting." The intelligence officer stepped closer to the barrier. "Voss, can you hear me? What do you see?" Adrian turned his head slowly, but when he answered, his voice had a layered quality, as if two consciousnesses spoke at once. "They are scouts, corrupted, searching for her, for us." Echo 9 pulsed in agreement, glowing brighter, readying her internal systems. The commander barked orders. "Hellion Station, prepare for evasive maneuvers." But Adrian raised a hand. No. His voice was calm, but carried a strange, unshakable authority. "What do you mean, no?" the commander demanded. Adrian turned toward the chamber doors as Echo 9's internal luminescence intensified. Her voice echoed in his thoughts, and he spoke her message aloud. "This station cannot run. If it moves, it exposes Earth. We hold the line here." Silence fell over the command crew. No one argued, no one dared, because deep down, they knew he was right. Echo 9's biometallic surface expanded, unfolding structures that had been dormant for centuries. Wings that were not wings. Weapon systems that grew like living bone. Thrusters that pulsed like the arteries of a starborn creature. Adrian felt everything as if it were his own body. Every energy surge, every internal shift, every awakening instinct. Through the hangar walls, he sensed the enemy fleet accelerate. 10 ships, then 20, then dozens, closing in with terrifying precision. But beneath all that doom, something else was rising inside him. Courage, and something dangerously close to destiny. The scientist spoke quietly, unable to look away. "Is it possible? You and Echo 9 are merging beyond synchronization?" Adrian's eyes glowed faintly, a reflection of Echo 9's light within him. "We are aligned at every level." "Is that safe?" Adrian almost smiled, not as reassurance, but as truth. "No, but it is necessary." The alarms blared again. "Outer shield layer breached. Enemy vessels accelerating. Impact in 20 seconds." Adrian stepped onto the ramp that led into Echo 9's internal cavity, a space that shifted to accommodate him, forming organically around his presence. The intelligence officer shouted, "Voss, if you launch, they'll follow you." He paused, Echo 9 pulsing around him, and turned back one last time. That's exactly the point. The hangar lights flickered as the bay doors opened, and then Adrian felt it. Not fear, not pressure, but the unmistakable trembling of space-time as something larger stirred far beyond the battlefield. A whisper, a shadow, a thought that wasn't a thought. The cosmic entity had noticed its hunters closing in, and it was beginning to look in their direction. Adrian's heart raced, not from panic, but from the overwhelming sensation of fate rushing toward him. He spoke softly, though his voice carried the weight of a star collapsing. "The real war hasn't even begun." Echo 9 spread her radiant wings and launched into the void as the first enemy ship opened fire, lighting up the darkness with the opening volley of a conflict older than humanity itself. The prelude to the greater war had begun.
The moment Echo 9 launched from the Helion station, the world around Adrian transformed into something indescribably vast. Space wasn't empty anymore. It was alive, vibrating with signals, trajectories, distortions, and the distant heartbeat of something ancient watching from far beyond the battlefield. Through Echo 9's senses, Adrian felt the first enemy blast streak past them, ripping a glowing trail through the darkness. The creature reacted immediately, folding parts of her biometallic body like wings shifting in mid-flight. She moved with a fluidity no human ship had ever matched, as if space itself bent to her rhythm. In that instant, Adrian understood. He wasn't piloting her. He was her. Every movement was instinct shared. Every reaction a conversation without words. Every choice a merging of thought and purpose. Behind them, the Helion station shuddered as more enemy ships descended. Fragments of debris drifted off its hull like frozen sparks. The commander's voice echoed faintly through the comms. "Echo 9, Voss, Godspeed." Adrian closed his eyes, letting Echo 9's perceptions guide him forward. Her awareness spread across the void like a net of light, detecting every hostile engine burn, every corrupted signal, every pulse of energy. And beyond the enemy ships, beyond the horizon of sensors, something stirred. A pressure, a gravity without mass, a gaze without eyes. The entity. It wasn't here yet, not fully, but it was turning, slowly, deliberately, as if the movement of its attention alone could warp the fabric of space. Echo 9 felt it too. Adrian sensed her tremble, not in fear, but in memory. She had faced this presence before. She had survived it once. But now, she wasn't alone. The first wave of hunter ships formed a tightening ring around Adrian and Echo 9. Their hulls were twisted, cracked, restructured by an intelligence that cared nothing for form or function, only obedience. Their lights flickered like dying stars. Their weapons hummed with a frequency that made Adrian's chest ache. One of the hunters broadcast a signal, cold, metallic, empty of consciousness. Not communication, identification. Echo 9's internal systems reacted violently, her bioluminescent veins flaring bright enough to light up the cockpit. Adrian felt her pain, her instinct to run, her urge to fight, her memory of loss. "Easy," he whispered silently. "You're not alone anymore." She steadied. Their minds aligned. The battlefield froze in a moment of perfect tension. Then Adrian spoke, though the voice that came out wasn't entirely human anymore. "Let's begin." Echo 9 launched forward in a burst of living light. The first enemy ship fired, but she was already gone. The second attempted to intercept, only to be outmaneuvered by a movement that felt more like dancing than flying.
The third closed in too quickly, and Echo 9 responded with a pulse of energy that tore through its corrupted hull like tearing fabric. Adrian felt every impact, every vibration, every scream of metal, but none of it slowed him. None of it deterred her, because for the first time in her existence, Echo 9 had something to protect, someone to protect, humanity. But then, as the last ship in the first wave exploded behind them, Adrian felt it again. The entity, faint, distant, awakening, not fully aware of Earth yet, but aware of them. Adrian's breath caught in his chest. Echo, if it finds us. Her response came like a whisper woven into starlight. Then we will decide what we become. The darkness around them deepened. The stars dimmed. The cosmic horizon pulsed as if something on the other side was pushing its way toward them. Adrian tightened his grip on the connection, anchoring himself in her consciousness. He knew, without needing to ask, that the real war wasn't the skirmish happening now. It was the war coming next. A war where existence itself would be the battlefield. And in the quiet between heartbeats, one question echoed through his mind and hers, intertwining like two voices becoming one. How far can a human and a living starship go before they become something entirely new? The universe offered no answer, only silence, only the cold, endless dark ahead. As Echo 9 accelerated into that darkness, ready to face the storm that awaited them, Adrian understood. The question wouldn't just shape his future, it would shape the fate of humanity itself.